Hi everyone, welcome back to Art with Miss K. In this video, I'm going to teach you how to shade using oil pastels. So I recorded a previous video showing you how to color and blend colors using oil pastels. And in this video, I'm going to teach you how to shade. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you guys. So you are looking at, or should be looking at, my oil pastels. Okay, and so that previous video showed you how to make a spectrum like this. And I just went ahead and ordered my colors with my oil pastels in color order. So again, I have pink, red, orange, yellow, light green, then I have a dark green, then blue, light blue, sky blue, dark blue, and then violet. And then up here, I have my tints, tones, and shades. So I have white, I have black, I have a beige color, and then I have this brown over here. So we're going to get to play around with these today. So I'm going to go ahead and slide this up in front of me. Please remember that if you are using oil pastels, that you do need to always have them in front of you. Don't have them to your left or to your right, especially don't have them up in front of your paper. Reason why is we don't want to knock those over on the floor. We really don't want to get them on our clothes. We also don't want to accidentally step on them, smear them, smudge them, etc. Oil pastels can get really messy, so you just want to take as many precautions as you can and keep them nice and organized in front of you. All right, guys, so I'm going to go ahead and show you how to make some basic shapes look three-dimensional. So we're going to focus on just doing circles today. So we're going to turn circles into spheres. And there's several different ways that we can do this using any kind of color. So I did record a previous video showing you how to do 3 different ways of using color with colored pencil to make things look three-dimensional. And I'm going to do those exact 3 same ways using oil pastels. So if you've seen that video, awesome. If you haven't, we're just going to go over the exact same process that we did with colored pencils. Okay, so the first way I can color with any sort of color, but especially with oil pastels, is using analogous colors. So just remember, analogous colors are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. Your color that is yellow or closest to yellow is going to be your highlight color. So the place that's closest to your light source is going to be that light color. So if you're doing red, purple, and blue, red is going to be your highlight color. If you're doing yellow, green, and blue, your highlight color is going to be yellow because yellow is the lightest color. If you're doing orange, red, and violet, then your highlight color would be orange, etc., etc. Okay, if you did like green, blue, violet, green would be your highlight color because it is closest to yellow on the color wheel. Okay, so with that in mind, I'm going to do yellow, green, and blue. So I'm going to take my yellow, my lime green, my dark green, and my blue. Since in that last video, I actually didn't show you how to blend 2 different greens together. So because I want to use my dark green, oops, that's so loud. Sorry, guys. You might notice that this green, there's only like a little bit of the edge left over for me to color from. So I call it performing surgery on these colored pencils. I like to try to keep the paper on for as long as possible, but I do need to remove some of the paper. So I just take a X-Acto knife. If you don't have an X-Acto knife, but you have like a scalpel, you can use a scalpel. Or you can very, very carefully use a knife. Just please, please, please be careful when doing this. Do your best to not apply a ton of pressure and also to keep your fingers out of the way. So I'm going to go ahead and roll these guys out of the way. And I'm going to hold it like this, and I'm going to cut in between this way. So I'm not holding it like this and cutting this way because I might accidentally cut my finger. I'm going to go ahead and hold it. And then I firmly press down once. Okay, and I make a little bit of an incision there. Now you can see why I call it surgery. And all I do is I take that paper and I rip that paper off. And that leaves me a nice edge of my paper or of my pastel with still allowing me to have paper on it. So that would be how we would perform surgery on an oil pastel should we need to, which in my case we do. I actually think I'm going to perform surgery on my yellow too, just because my yellow is looking like it is going to need that as well. And then I'm going to go ahead and start my sphere. Oopsies, this one's a little bit trickier. I also have longer nails, which can complicate art making. If you are just someone with longer nails, you will know that it's a little bit harder. but that's okay. We can still work around it, find new ways of innovation. Okay, so I have my yellow cut and my dark green cut, so I think I am ready to start. So just like we did with our colored pencils, I like to take my lightest color. You don't need to find something circular to trace. You also don't need a protractor or a color a protractor or a compass. You can actually create a circle just by going over it multiple times. So I'm gonna lightly just like make a circle multiple times, okay? And so by doing that, it kind of naturally makes an actual like nice circle. It might not be perfect, and that's totally fine, okay? So what I did is I just drew a circle, okay, obviously. But now I'm going to make it look like a sphere. So a circle is flat, a sphere is three-dimensional. So if you're shading, typically we shade to make things look three-dimensional. Now, if you've ever seen a globe before, and you think of the latitude and longitude signs, they go around the sphere. So they're curved, they're not flat. If you think of holding a ball in your hands would be curved. They would not be totally flat if they were pressed against your object. Okay, so that means that when we are coloring circles, we must color in a curved way. So if I just draw those lines out, you do not need to draw these lines unless they help you. Okay, but you always want to color in a way that shows the form of your object. So you do not want to color in a way that is flat, because it's going to make your sphere look flat. Okay, so I'm going to have my light source coming from up here. You do not need to draw the arrow, but please do if it helps you. Okay, I'm going to move my color pencils over, or my oil pastels over. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and start with yellow. I'm starting with my lightest color that is closest to my light source, and I'm going to color in a curved motion. Okay. And I'm going to do something called color mapping. So color mapping, I don't know if it's a real art vocabulary word, but it is the word that I use to describe when you just lay out a basic color everywhere to see if you like the way it looks before you continue to add layers. So I added a little bit of yellow. Now I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit of green, of my light green. Okay. Then I'm going to go ahead and add my dark green down here. And then just a hint of my blue all the way down here. Okay, so I'm going to look at this and see, hey, do those colors look right? Do I like the way that looks? And if I don't, now is the best time to fix it, because I've done one light layer of oil pastel. So I haven't pressed really hard. You can still see a lot of that black paper through, and that is exactly what I want. Now, if you don't like it, now is the perfect time to make adjustments. You can either layer your colors a little bit differently and keep kind of going over them, or if you really, really hate it, you can get rid of it by taking your nail and kind of scratching off some of the extra wax. It's not going to erase, so don't try to erase it. If you try to erase it, it's actually going to get all over your eraser and it will smear all over your paper. So just kind of take your nail and kind of press if you would like to get rid of it. But again, most of the time we don't need to do that. Even in this, if I wanted to change the color, all I have to do is add additional layers. Okay, so we're going to do that same process that we did with colored pencils. So I like to rotate my paper, and I'm going to color in a curved line following the form of my object. And I'm going to color down. I'm not going all the way down because I don't want that yellow all the way down here, because this is where it's going to be the darkest. Okay, so I'm just coloring that section. I'm going to really make sure that this area right here is really light. Okay. Then I'm going to do the same process with my light green. So blending that light green up and down. This is where you'll start to notice, if you followed along in the color pencil tutorial, oil pastels blend much more nicely and quickly than colored pencil. Colored pencil takes a long time to do. Okay, so I did my green. I might take a little bit yellow and blend that back down. It's up to you. Again, anytime you see a line, just blend those colors back into each other. But you'll notice the more layers of oil pastel you do, the harder it is to layer. So that's why sometimes you do need to take your nail and just scratch it off. But most of the time, again, you shouldn't need to, as long as you're working in careful layers. Okay, so now I'm going to take my dark green and blend it up into my lime green. I'm going to be very careful because it is a pretty strong color change, and I don't want to change it too dramatically. Okay, so I want to be very, very careful. I don't want a line. Okay, so I took my dark green and did that. Then I'm going to take my light green and blend it back down. Okay, and then I'm going to take my blue and I'm just going to add a little bit over here and blend it back up. Okay, so what that does is that creates the sense of a sphere. Add a little bit more green down here. It creates a sense of a sphere by intentionally shading, focusing on how to shade using analogous colors. So again, this is one way to do, to shade and make things, forms look three-dimensional by shading using analogous colors, okay? So step one, okay? The next way of doing this is by using colors that are similar to each other, but not quite the same. So I actually don't have enough colors to do this in an extreme way. I only have, my two choices are I have light green and dark green, or I have light blue and dark blue. So I can do either of these. I usually like to have 3 colors, but I can still kind of work with this. I'm gonna go ahead and do blue since I did green over here. If you have a larger set of oil pastels, this will of course be a little bit easier because you have more colors to choose from. I'm going to do the exact same thing I did before by taking my lighter color and kind of doing a circle a couple times. Oops, that is not a good circle, but that's okay. Okay, and similar process, I get to pick where I want my light source to come from. So I'm going to have it come from over here. And same exact principle, you want to color in the form of your object. So you want curved lines. Remember, there's no part of a circle that's flat, so you want it to look nice and three-dimensional. Again, if these lines help you, draw them. If they don't help you, don't draw them. That's okay. Okay, and we want it to look really nice up here. We want it to curve. So I want my blue to come up here. Okay, and I'll take my dark blue and I'm going to shade it down here. Okay, and since I don't have a ton of, I don't have a third blue color, I'm actually going to do something slightly different than I did in our color pencil tutorial, and I'm going to go ahead and pull out my black and white. I'm not going to use black yet because you always want to use black last and you always want to use less than you think you need. Now, believe it or not, this is a white. It's completely dirty. So there's multiple ways you can fix this. You can take a paper towel. You can kind of wipe it off on your hand. Sometimes that works. It kind of just depends on how bad it is, like that kind of smeared it. Or you can take a piece of scratch paper and just kind of mark it off until you're sure that it's clean. So my edge is clean. So I'm just going to take some of this white and I'm going to add it to this highlighted area up here. Okay. And that's going to be part of my circle. Again, I'm going to add a little bit of black down here, but I'm not going to do that quite yet. Okay, so I'm going to look, I haven't done a ton of layers, maybe probably pressed a little too hard or did a few too many layers, but it's still fixable at this point. I'm going to look at it, see if I like it. I do. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate my paper, go in the opposite direction. So really making sure I'm using that clean side of my pastel. And I'm going to go ahead and again, in a curved line, going to blend that color down. Okay. Then I'm going to take my light blue and do that same thing, blending those colors together. Going in both directions. And I'm going to take my dark blue, same process. Okay. And then it starts to really look like a sphere. So I definitely need to add some additional layers of pastel. You can still see some of my, you can still see some of my blue underneath. I'm just going to take a minute and really just work on blending that together. So anytime you see a line, all you got to do is blend those colors into each other a bit more. One into the other, and then vice versa. Okay. Again, you should not need to use your finger for oil pastels. I really prefer students not to. It's just messier and it gets everywhere. And really, if you just practice layering, you shouldn't need to, okay? But if you must blend, I recommend getting a paper towel or a tissue and blending that way. Okay, last but not least, I'm just gonna take a little bit of my black and put it on this far edge and just very carefully just do a line. I'm not gonna do much else. You can already see how extreme that contrast is. Then I'm gonna take my blue and blend it into that black. Just to blend it up. Okay, so again, it's pretty extreme. It's pretty intense contrast. And it just kind of is up to you what you want and what you like. So as you can tell, just by using the white and black, this one looks way more three-dimensional than this guy does because it's such a more intense contrast, whereas my analogous colors are so close together that there's not as strong of a contrast, okay? So that's showing you how to use monochromatic, so using blues, like different shades of blue, so a really light blue, a really dark blue. I'm gonna go ahead and do something similar one more time with a different color. Using my white and my black. I'll go ahead and do, say, violet. Okay, so I'm going to start. We'll do one more circle. So again, drawing a circle, just kind of draw it out a few times to get a circle-y shape. I'm going to go ahead this time and have my light source coming from down here. Okay, which means that my light area is going to come over here. So again, just drawing those lines to help me draw this in a three-dimensional way. Again, you don't need to draw these, just do what's helpful for you. Okay, but that helps to make it look three-dimensional. So that's going to tell me where I need to color my lines. So I have my white, my black, and I'm actually going to take, if you have like a peachy color, you can use that, or even better, if you have a gray color, that would work the best. Actually, as I said that, I'm just going to use black and white because, but if you have gray, please use gray as well. Okay, and I'll show you how to mix it. The reason I hesitated is this has like almost like a pinkish tone to it. And because I'm using purple, I think it might change the color too dramatically. Okay, so we're just going to use white. So we're going to start, of course, by having lots of layers of white. It's going to be more intense up here and it's going to slowly fade out. And I'm going to use more white than I think I need because white dramatically changes. So I'm actually bringing it almost all the way down. Okay. So I brought it almost all the way down. I'm going to go ahead and rotate my paper. I'm not adding black yet. I'm just going to focus on white. Okay. And I'm going to do a second layer, but I'm not going to go quite all the way down. Okay. So I'm going to go almost all the way down, but not quite. Again, I'm moving in a curved line, thinking of the shape of my object when I'm coloring. Okay. Doing the same process, but moving up a little bit more. Let me move my oil pastels. Oh. Sorry, guys. They were in the way. They're dangerously close to getting knocked onto the floor by me. So I moved them. Okay, so I was about here. I moved up, so I'm going to go ahead and do another layer. Going in this direction. Okay. And rotate my paper again. And do another layer over here. Okay, and then last but not least, I'm going to really focus in on this area right over here. Okay, so it's really intense. So it goes from a really intense light white color to it gets more and more, you can see more and more of the black paper the farther we go. And that is just from taking a chance to layer and practice layering and very intentionally layering my colors. Okay. Now I'm going to extremely carefully, I might even add just like a little bit more white down here. Okay, extremely carefully, I'm going to add a little bit of black to this. Okay, so I'm going to start here on this far edge. Okay, this is where if you happen to have a gray, it would come in very helpful because you can do a gray tone in the middle. But if you're like me and you only have black and white, you can still do this. Okay, and so I'm going to very lightly, as lightly as you possibly can, I'm going to add just a little bit of black. I'm not going to go crazy with it. Okay, so I've done the lightest layer humanly possible. I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more just on this far side. Okay, and I'm going to stop there for a moment because I want to use my white to blend it. So I'm trying to get this gray color, which is going to require the pigment mixing on the actual paper. So I'm just going to take that and work on blending that together. Okay, this of course is going to get the tip of my pastel dirty as well. But as you blend it, you should start to see, as long as you did that white layer correctly, it should fade from a white color to a gray color to a black color. Okay, so this is probably good. I'm not gonna like worry too much about like this area, maybe like trying to add a little bit of white to it, but I'm not gonna like stress out about it right now. Okay. Again, like this needs to be kind of curve your shading. You'll start to notice the more layers of color you do, the harder it is. It's almost like there's too much pigment on your paper. So that's why, again, we always work in slow and careful layers. Okay, so I've done an additional color. So now would be the time, just like with colored pencils, where you would take your additional color and you're just gonna layer it on top. And it's gonna change the color dramatically. So it's using one color for the whole sphere. So if I do that with my oil pastel, you always want to start with your lightest area first. So with the white, and you want to make sure that your tip is clean. Okay. And I'm just going to go ahead and start adding my white or my purple to my white. Okay. So again, you want to follow that form. Slow and steady wins the race. Okay. So you want to kind of color in both directions as you go farther down, because again, that pigment is going to naturally mix. Okay, so I did most of my white already. I'm gonna go ahead and keep moving down. And again, that same process where you're blending those colors together. Okay, so you can start to see how it really starts to blend and look really nice when you've added it. This would be a good opportunity too when you get to about this point if you want to add an additional layer of white to really make it pop. And have it kind of shade and go down. You can do that as well. You could add a little bit more black over here just to make it pop again. Just being very careful again, because black dramatically changes the color. So again, I used purple, but it did kind of turn pink because I added white to it. So it's like a pinkish purpley color, okay? So that would be the last way that you could shade using oil pastels again. So this one I'm using analogous colors, colors that are right next to each other on the color wheel. This guy I'm using monochromatic colors, so different shades of blue, and I did use white and black to help with it. And then this guy, I'm using tints, tones, and shades with the same color. So I used white, black, and gray. So tint being white, tone being gray, and shade being black. And I use the same color to make it look three-dimensional. So that, my friends, is how you would shade using oil pastels. Of course, these are very simple shapes that I turned into forms just by the way I am coloring. Okay, guys, I'm so excited to see what you guys create. I'm excited to see these practice papers. I would love to have you guys keep going and practice. Call me over if you're confused or if you need assistance with anything. But overall, I'm super excited to see what you guys make with oil pastels. I hope you love pastels as much as I do. In our next video, we will talk about chalk pastels and different ways that you can work with them and how they are different from oil pastels. Alrighty, guys, bye.